Hey guys, my name's Kenzo. This is Love Life Drawing. I hope you're excited for today's session. It's mostly a normal session with normal poses, but the last pose, the model's moving. And that's tough, that is difficult. So why would we do this to you guys? We just had the clothing challenge, which was tough. And now we have a moving model. Last year we had a moving model and there was a lot of controversy around that. But it's not just because we're being mean that we're throwing this in here. There are really good reasons to add this exercise into Figuary, and I'm going to explain those in a second. But before I do, I wanted to mention a couple of other challenges about this session, as if it wasn't hard enough. But I think I've mentioned before that a muscular physique I found a little bit more difficult to capture, in a quick gesture. And I think the reason for that might be that there's more going on there. There's more kind of features because of all the muscles and stuff. And so it's easier to get caught up in details. And you can't do that, as we know, in a quick drawing. And then the other reason maybe is because you might get caught up in, or you might accidentally put in some symmetrical curves in the drawing. And we know that that's not great for the sense of movement and gesture, and actually our musculature generally isn't symmetrical. Like it looks like the bicep and the tricep are just two symmetrical curves like a pair of brackets, but they're not. They're a little bit offset against each other. So I wanted to mention a few little quick pointers to hopefully help deal with this muscular physique, and then we'll talk about the moving pose as well. So the first thing is to find the asymmetry. Find curves that flow into each other, are offset against each other, and avoid symmetrical curves. The second thing is, I've seen it before when a guy has like clear-cut abs. People will draw those, focus on the abs themselves and the little bumps of the abs. But still what we care about is the bigger form of the torso. What's the bigger shapes? Rather than all the little intricacy like a grid of muscles of the abs, let's still try and look for and focus on the bigger shapes that we're seeing. And then the third thing is to still simplify the marks and try and use C-shaped curves, S-shaped curves, and straight lines. So with that said, what is going on with this moving figure? Why are we doing this? Well, one reason is, if you ever want to be able to go out into the real world and sketch people like in the park or something, it's nice to have this ability to draw people that are moving, so we can practice that a little bit. But more important than that, this exercise is going to be helpful to push us beyond kind of copying what we see in like a 2D image that we see and just trying to map out exactly what we're seeing, and thinking about the form that we're looking at in 3D, interpreting that into our drawing. Because we're going to be looking at this model from the forms of this model move around, and we'll see it from a few different angles. Every time that we look up, we're going to see the forms from different angles, and that's going to help us to get a three-dimensional understanding of it, and then we can use that to translate, into our drawing. And that is a more difficult skill. I think it's kind of a next step, but it is more advanced and more difficult. And if it's going to be, overwhelming and not as fun because it's too difficult, I would say just pause the pose and draw it like a normal static pose. We have to keep it fun, otherwise we're not going to keep practicing. So no problem with pausing it if you want to pause it. So with that said, let's look at how to tackle this moving pose. So I've seen this exercise done a few different ways, like with the life model kind of dancing around the room, and then the artist drawing whatever curves they see when their eyes flick up to observe the model. And then the next time they look at the model's in a different place doing something different, and they'll just draw whatever curves they see. And they don't end up with a cohesive figure drawing at the end. They get a kind of pattern of gestural curves on the paper, which looks kind of fun, and it's a good exercise for loosening up. I don't think we can really do that with this particular pose because he's just moving back and forth between the same poses. So if we did that, we'd end up with a lot of lines in roughly the same place, and it could just get messy. So instead, I think we should aim to draw the figure at one end of the motion or the other, or both. That's what Mako did. I think that's more advanced, to do both ends. I think it's fine to just aim to draw one end. Either way, what matters is that when you look at the figure, don't just wait for them to get to the part of the motion that you're drawing and then, observe that and then just try and draw that little bit of the pose. Observe the forms of their figure throughout the motion, like I was saying earlier, and use that understanding of their figure to inform your drawing. Like if you're drawing their chest and you're drawing it when it's over here, but when you look back at the model, he's moving it around like this. Look at that chest as it moves and understand the shape of it, and then use that understanding to inform your drawing. It's tough. I'm not going to say that that's easy, but that's kind of the part of the exercise that I think is most beneficial. Now, because Mako did both ends of the motion, she said it was useful to use this little fold in the cloth to kind of anchor both poses too, or both ends of the pose too, because that's staying still and he's moving back and forth between them. And she played it through twice, and the first round she just mapped out a very simple stick man to get the pose down, and then on the second round she started to build up the shapes. Now, one last thing that I wanted to mention though is that something that she mentioned to me and something that I 100% agree with is one of the hardest things about this is not so much the movement of the model, it's the pose itself is a little bit straight on and a little bit symmetrical, and the motion is quite symmetrical. And we've looked before at how in a pose we kind of want a twist or a fold or something dynamic to set off our gesture and build our movement in our drawing around. So even though he's moving in the pose, there's not much movement, not much gesture that we can bring into our drawing easily. And I think that's one of the hardest things about this pose. And so that's another challenge. And to overcome that, I'm just going to reiterate those things I mentioned before. Find the asymmetry in his musculature. You'll find movement and flow and gesture in the curves of his physique that way. And use C curves and S curves and straight lines. Simplify as much as you can. This is a tough one, guys, so please don't feel bad if it goes completely wrong. Let's share our experiences in the community, on our website or on Instagram. Hopefully we can go into this one with a sort of playful attitude, because it is tough, but it's a fun exercise, and you know what? We're all in it together. So I will see you guys back here tomorrow. Tomorrow there's a little bit more with the moving pose that we're going to look at. I actually think tomorrow's one is easier, so hopefully that will entice you back for one more session of moving poses, and then after that we'll be back to normal life drawing. So have a lot of fun with it, guys, and don't forget our wonderful course, figure drawing course, opens for enrollment on March 1st. Check it out. I'll put a link below, and I will see you guys back here tomorrow.